Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we are welcome to the first panel session. And this session will be delivered by Her Excellencies Professor Judith Puncochar, Ph.D., a professor of education from Northern Michigan University from the United States. Good morning, Professor. It's so glad to have you again here in this morning.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here. Delighted.
And thank you very much for coming in such early morning in the US time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this session will be led by Ibu Ratih Inaya as our first moderator. Before I get started, please allow me to read a short bio from Ibu Ratih. Ladies and gentlemen, Ibu Ratih Inaya SPD MPD was born in Bandung on August 31st, 1988, as an educator, lecturer, researcher, and also a practitioner who has been focusing on the realm of teaching and learning English as a foreign language in Indonesia since 14 years ago. Starting from her great interest in the use of English since she was elementary school, wanted to deepen her overall English in all aspects of English language. She has graduated from the Department of English Education for her both bachelor and master degree from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia or UPI. Until now, she's actively teaching as a permanent lecturer in English Education Study Program at IKIP Siliwangi. And this year, her teaching experience has reached 14 years, and it makes her to continue updating herself to increase knowledge in the realm of education by continuing her study. Well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please allow me to invite Ibu Ratih Inaya. Ibu Ratih Inaya, I handed you a phone and start the first session.
All right, thank you very much, Patrice Nendri Syahrizal, for introducing me as the moderator for the first panel session. The honorable speakers, distinguished guests, and also esteemed participants. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the first panel session of the third International Language Education Conference 2023, held by English Education Study Program under Faculty of Language Education, IKIP Siliwangi, Cimahi, West Java, Indonesia. I'm Ratih Inaya, will be your moderator for this session. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before the presentation begins, please allow me to introduce you to our first keynote speaker, Professor Judith Puncochar from Northern Michigan University in United States of America. Hello, Professor.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Professor. My name is Ratih, and I will be your moderator for this keynote session.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good morning, and maybe evening there. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here in Indonesia, and maybe 8 o'clock in the evening there in America.
7 o'clock in the evening.
Oh, yes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Judith Puncochar will deliver her presentation for about 30 minutes. And then after that, we will have about 15 minutes for question and answer session. Professor, please let me inform you that 5 minutes before the presentation end, please allow me to give you the soft reminder to remind you that the time is almost up. Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, during the presentation, you may write your question in chat box. Now, please allow me to read the short biography of our keynote speaker, Professor Judith Puncochar. Professor Dr. Judith Puncochar is an emeritus professor of educational psychology at Northern Michigan University, where she taught research methods, assessment, and educational psychology to candidates and professional educators. Dr. Puncochar obtained her doctorate from the University of Minnesota in 1996 and served as interim director of human relations program for 14 years, where she taught professional educators about cooperative learning teaching strategies, teacher expectations, creating positive teacher-student interactions, and leaderships. She joined Northern Michigan University faculty in 2004. She was a contributing author to more than $2 million in science and mathematics education grants. She has written numerous conference and research papers, and she and the late Professor Awasilah from UPI Bandung co-authored Empowering Higher Education in Indonesia, or translated in Bahasa Indonesia as Memberdayakan Pendidikan Tinggi di Indonesia, in support of general education coursework in Indonesian undergraduate education. She served as Northern Michigan University Academic Program Assessment Coordinator, American Association of University Women Market Branch President, and Higher Learning Commission Peer Corps Reviewer. Dr. Puncochar is a good cook and enjoys managing the family farm. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please help me to welcome our first keynote speaker, Professor Judith Puncochar from Northern Michigan University, United States of America. To the Honorable Professor Judith Puncochar, the microphone is yours.
Thank you very much. And I am delighted to be here. This is the second time I have presented at your conference, and I'm delighted to be invited back. I want to thank ISRI for remembering our research together, our work together at the Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. And I am ready to start. So I'm going to talk today about second chances, mastery learning, second chances, instructor workload, and student confidence. And I want to draw your attention to the website where my paper is housed. And please go to the link below if you'd like to read the paper yourself. I think you might find it interesting, I hope. So I'm delighted to speak with you this morning, and I want to share some mastery learning ideas from 2 research studies, and I hope you will love mastery learning. Again, my conference paper is at that website. With study 1 is with Professor Don Faust, who's a Ph.D. in mathematics, and he taught mastery learning in study 1, and Prof. Don is here to answer questions.
Hi, I'm Prof. Don, and pengalaman saya untuk pengajaran dengan menggunakan cara pembelajaran penguasaan or mastery learning adalah bagus sekali dan lebih berkesan daripada cara yang saya menggunakan sebelum itu.
So thank you. So Professor Don and I worked together on this study, and I want to share the results with you. And if you have questions, he is the instructor of the courses we will be talking about. The second study I will share with you is one that I did a few years ago, and it is also described in the book Empowering Higher Education in Indonesia by Professor Haidar Al-Wasila and myself, and translated to Bahasa Indonesia by Indiana Al-Wasila and Semesta Learning Evolution in Bandung, Indonesia. And Indiana is attending the conference this morning. So thank you, Indiana, for being here. So studies 1 and study 2, and I will start with study 1. So Professor Don and I had a conversation, and he said, my students really learn calculus. I said, excellent. What do you do when students receive low test scores? Now, a principle of mastery learning is nothing is done until it is done right. And that is a quote from a wonderful article written in 1934, almost 100 years ago. It's a 4-page article. I encourage you to read that article. It is delightful. And the author talks about mastery learning and how to implement mastery learning on case studies. Now, a typical test, first-time test, and first chance on an exam, looks like grading on the normal curve. That's just typical. And there is some mastery on a typical first chance exam. You have a few people mastering the material, but only a few students have the capacity to master the material on the first try. Now, instructors love evidence that students are learning, and students are learning. That's a typical test. But mastery learning includes more students, and ideally, instructors want all students to learn and master the material. So the idea with mastery learning is to give students second chances to demonstrate learning and move the curve toward mastery. Students should be able to correct errors in their learning and reach a level of mastery for more points added to their exam scores. So we advocate for second chances to demonstrate learning. Move that curve. Benjamin Bloom in 1968 theorized that more than 90% of the students in our courses could master the course content if instructors provided quality instruction and gave students time for learning. So mastery learning is an old idea. Now, Professor Don and I have structured second chances for mastery within the usual organization of a semester. So you can structure mastery learning within your usual coursework. And again, from this article in 1934 by Dolch, nothing short of mastery of a subject should be tolerated. So Professor Don taught calculus with or without mastery learning over 3 semesters. So this slide has the 3 courses, the 3 on calculus, 3 semesters. The first semester was lecture without mastery. And so there were 4 exams the first semester. The students got 1,000 points. The second semester, I talked him into using mastery learning. So he wanted to give students time to master the material. He gave only 2 exams, and he offered mastery learning to be completed outside of class during office hours. And by cutting back to 2 exams, he actually had more time for instruction in class because the mastery learning was done by students outside of class, and they met with him during office hours, Again, for mastery learning, the second semester, 1,000 points. And the third semester, he liked mastery learning so much that he offered a 3rd exam so they could practice with the mastery learning on the 3rd exam. Again, 1,000 points. So we have 3 courses, 1 without mastery learning and 2 with mastery learning. And the courses were the same material, taught consecutive semesters, had the same learning objectives, the same course. So with Mastery Learning, he provided bonus points. In the Mastery Learning courses, the students had an option, they were not required, they had an option to correct their missed points on their mid-semester exams for half credit to be added to their original scores. Mastery Learning points were also available for homework, but they were not available on the final exam. And the final exam is important because that gives you evidence of the student learning on the course. So, but Mastery Learning was not available there. Its final exam is a summative exam, the final exam. Now, with bonus points added to the mid-semester exams, you would expect that the grading on the curve would move. You would expect bonus points would add higher grades for the students. That was the expectation. We had 3 hypotheses. The first one was students would attain appropriate higher level mathematical concepts, meaning that the students would learn calculus. It would not be mathematics lower than calculus or higher than calculus. They would learn calculus. The second hypothesis, students would achieve more learning of higher level mathematical concepts. So they would learn more calculus. The third hypothesis is students would evaluate Mastery Learning favorably. Okay, 3 hypotheses. So I looked at the course grades from Prof. Don's class in the lecture and the Mastery Learning courses, and I asked, well, why are the grades not higher in the Mastery Learning classes? They really are relatively similar. In the lecture class, you see about 58% A's and B's, and we've got 64% A's and B's, and then over here we have 48% A's and B's. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And so it's with Mastery Learning, and the students have mastered the material, you would think that you would have more A's and B's, maybe even 50%, 60%, and in some classes, 85% A's. Why not, if they've mastered the material? So their first hypothesis, the students attain appropriate higher level mathematical concepts. I'm thinking, let's check out what happened on the final exam. And I had 6 expert mathematicians under conditions of blind review rate all randomized final exam items for appropriateness. Yes or no? Were these items, there's some feedback. Were these items appropriate to calculus? Yes or no? And the mathematicians rated all of the items as appropriate for calculus. So the final exam items were all appropriate. The experts then rated all final exam items for item difficulty. From easy with 0 to 10 is difficult. And what happened was, in the Mastery Learning course, the items were rated as significantly more difficult than the traditional lecture items. So the second hypothesis, the students achieved more learning in higher level mathematical concepts. Did they actually learn more? The 6 expert mathematicians attributed the higher scores on the final exams to learning more mathematics, not to greater score inflation. So they did learn more mathematics with Mastery Learning and second chances. So the third hypothesis, the students. How did the students evaluate Mastery Learning? Well, this is a quote from one student. I have a much better understanding of the material than in classes where I just took the test and never looked at it again. So the students, 100% of the students in the Mastery Learning courses rated Mastery Learning favorably. They liked earning extra points with Mastery Learning grading, and these points were just half credit. They weren't full credit. If a student had 70% on an examination, the student then missed 30 percentage points. They could have 15 percentage points added back to their score, so they would end up with a score of 85% rather than 70%. So they could earn half credit for missed work. They liked earning the extra points for Mastery Learning grading. The students claimed they had enhanced problem-solving skills from Mastery Learning. They had more opportunities to learn, and they liked revisiting the homework problems and correcting exams. They said that helped them learn. Then the student evaluations were highly positive. So, why didn't more students receive grades of A? And the professor said students who normally were uninvolved, students who normally were uninvolved suddenly became engaged. Nearly 95% of students corrected their exam errors. So he had 95% of the students correcting their exam errors and reaching mastery on the material covered on the mid-semester exams. But why weren't there more A's? Why weren't there more 50% or 60% A's? And the professor said, grades were mostly due to having increased expectations regarding student learning, and hence making the Mastery Learning exams harder. And I don't know that that's fair, but that's what happened. There increased expectations, the exam items were harder, but his students really learned calculus. So these are some concluding remarks on study one. The professor had high enthusiasm and energy, even though more time was needed for grading. And he stated that giving student feedback was manageable, working with students was enjoyable, and identifying areas of mathematical misunderstandings was possible in individual students. He saw more students during his office hours than he'd ever seen before. And he worked with students that needed to have some help, and it was quite enjoyable for him. The final exams in Mastery Learning courses were significantly more difficult than exams in courses without Mastery Learning opportunities. So, study two, that's a look at study one, what happens with mastery. Study two is Mastery Learning with group work. And this is work that I did, and I've done over the last 30 years, actually. And you can also see this book for some more information about this study. That structured group work with Mastery Learning has an additive effect on student learning, and you can do this in class. So the students took quizzes as individuals, and then they worked in small groups of 3 or 4 students to reach consensus on their quiz answers for bonus points added to their individual students' quiz score. So they would take the quiz individually, and then I would collect the answer sheets. I would have their individual answers and know how they did with their first chance. Then they would get into groups. They would take the same quiz again, and that for bonus points added to their individual scores. Second chance. So Mastery Learning occurs when students work in groups together to reach correct answers on the quiz. So this is what my classes looked like. And we gave 11 quizzes, and Mastery Learning was completed in class in groups. And the final exam had half of the items were repeated from the quizzes as a check to make certain that the students really learned the material that they said that they were learning. And then half was similar material, new material, and for Mastery Learning. So this is what the answer sheet looked like for the individuals. And I wanted to know how confident the individuals were in their learning. Because confidence, I wanted them to have confidence to be excited about the learning, to feel confident about their knowledge. And so I asked them, how confident are you that this is the right answer? And so circle your answers on the answer sheet, rate your confidence from 0 to 100% on the line. But I keyed an answer, and I also let them select their own answer if they wanted to, option E, if they wanted to. At the individual level, I collected those answer sheets. Then I put them in groups for mastery learning. Same answer sheet, same process. How confident are you that your answer is right? And had the group members' names at the top of the answer sheet. I had 3 hypotheses. Group work with mastery learning would increase student learning. Student confidence in learning would improve. That's important. The third one, students would evaluate group work with mastery learning favorably. So, what happened? We find that group work now, accuracy, where they get the right answers on the quiz. Accuracy are the blue bars. The blue is accuracy. The groups always had higher accuracy than the individuals. Every single quiz, the groups scored higher than the individuals. Even though the individuals scored quite well, the groups always scored higher. So group work with mastery learning did increase the student learning. They caught each other's mistakes. Now, confidence, notice, also was higher in groups than it was with individuals. Confidences are the gold bars. So let's take a look at what this looks like when we take a look at confidence when correct and confidence when wrong. Well, confidence when correct went up. Now, confidence when correct, those are the green bars. Group confidence is on top. Individual confidence, when they took the quiz the first time, right underneath the group confidence when correct. I would think that with group, when they got a wrong answer, they would know their confidence wouldn't be quite so high. They should have lower confidence, and they did. But look what happened over the semester. The confidence kept going up. It did not go down with wrong answers. It went up to the point where group confidence when wrong overtook individual confidence when right. So there's now we'll come back to confidence in a minute. The third hypothesis, students would evaluate group work with mastery learning favorably. This is a quote from a student. The group work went really well and helped a lot with understanding of content. 97% of students rated group work with mastery learning favorably. The groups liked earning extra points with mastery learning during group work, and the group student comments were highly positive for group work with mastery learning. They liked the team process. So these are some concluding remarks. The groups consistently scored higher than individuals did when working alone. So groups always scored higher than individuals. Student motivation to work in groups was positive. Work in groups resolved more than 90% of errors on the 10-item multiple choice quiz. So the group members caught each other's errors. And that's important because the group work reduced the time, the instructor, the time I needed to typically spend revisiting missed course concepts. The groups caught each other's mistakes. So I had more time then to work on new coursework because I did not have to review the items except the items the groups got wrong. Okay, but then the groups that selected, now this is also something that I found interesting. The groups that selected wrong answers with high confidence on the quizzes, it did not affect the accuracy for individual members on their final exam. Because individuals that were in a group that got a wrong answer, they could relearn the material, they could master the material and get the material correct on the final exam. That's important. There wasn't a group think that influenced the individuals. They could still get the right answer even though they'd worked in groups and got the wrong answer initially. So groups had higher confidence in their answers, right or wrong, than individuals had in their answers. So individuals like working in groups. The group work seems to produce an undesirable byproduct of mastery learning, namely being highly confident when wrong. So if the groups get a wrong answer, and it doesn't happen very often, but if groups do get a wrong answer, you need to have that group correct that answer so the team then has the right answer together and masters the material together. With instructor feedback and student feedback, students can correct their errors and master their learning for correct course content. So, and to wrap up my talk, Professor Don and I always teach with mastery learning. We recommend giving students second chances. You may do this either in the class itself, in the coursework, or have the students work on their own and come to the office hours and show their work to demonstrate their mastery. Instructor expectations for student learning tended to increase as student learning increased. So with Prof. Don, as the students were learning calculus, and you could see they were learning calculus, his expectations for their learning went higher and higher. So be careful, beware of grading on the curve and challenging students with harder final exams with mastery learning. You really need to go back to the types of questions you were asking before you started mastery learning, because your expectations will be higher and so will the students' expectations be higher for their learning. Student grades should honestly reflect the increased learning. So I firmly believe in giving A's when students have mastered the material. Instructors who use mastery learning in their classrooms remain committed to teaching future courses with mastery learning. I would never teach my courses any other way except with mastery learning. I always teach with mastery learning. And likewise, Professor Don teaches with mastery learning. These are my references, and I would encourage you to, again, click at the bottom link for the conference paper, where I explain how to put students into groups, and I explain the work with a little more detail than I have the time to explain here. So are there questions that you would like to ask me, and ask Prof. Don? He's right here. He's happy to share too with our experiences. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Professor Judith Puncochar, for such a wonderful speech and great presentation. I believe all the participants will get a very valuable knowledge and new insight into teaching and learning English. Ladies and gentlemen, now we've come to question and answer session. I would like to invite the participants to ask a question to our keynote speaker, Professor Judith Puncochar. Actually, there are a lot of participants who want to deliver a question to you, Professor, but we have to select the most appropriate question. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please raise your hand if you want to deliver a question. Okay, hello, Indiana Ayu Alwasila. Miss Indiana.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Miss Rati. Good morning, Judith.
Good morning, Indiana.
This is Indiana.
Yes,
Hi,
right
nice
here.
Huh? Hey, hi, Indiana. Hey, so nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Yeah, I'm so happy to see you today in this conference. And after listening to your presentation, I believe me as English instructor would like to know your perspective on how you think we can apply this mastery learning in language teaching, since I believe most of the participants are English teachers and lecturers. So yeah, I believe if you will share some insightful stories and perspectives about how we can implement this master learning. And also my family members and you, hi, and regards that yeah, they would like to, they're happy that you can be one to be the speaker here in the conference in Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Hello. So I would explain with language learning, I am an advocate of group work because I think it's important to speak and to listen. And I think many times with language learning, we give the students a test. I think written tests are also appropriate. But with a written test, I think there needs to be opportunities to correct all mistakes. And so for more points, so there's more opportunity to go back and learn the material again, revisit the material. And that can happen outside of class or in class with group work, where the groups retake the same test together and talk about what's right and what might not be correct. It's called team-assisted individualization. And with teams, with language learning, one of the things that you're going to want to do is you will always assign the students to groups. Do not let the students self-select their own groups. So you need to put the students together in random groups would be fine, but students will get more practice than with teams that you put together. So teamwork, and then allow them to correct their homework, allow them to correct their mistakes on exams for bonus points. So the students are constantly earning more points, and with the more points, students like points. They just like earning more points. So they're going to spend more time earning points. So another trick that I learned in my many years of teaching is that, and Professor Don does the same thing, we always have students work for 1,000 points. We never have them work for 100 points. You have them work for 1,000 points. The more points, the better. And so students, that I would argue that group work, in particular with language learning, is important. Did that help?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So glad to see you.
So glad to see you too. Glad you were here.
Thank you very much to Miss Indiana Ayu Alwasila, who delivered the great question to our keynote speaker, Professor Judith Puncochar. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite you again to deliver a question to our keynote speaker, Professor Judith Puncochar. Professor, actually, there are a lot of participants here who really want to ask a question to you. It means that they feel really excited to ask a question to you. But I have to choose Muhammad Gifari. Hello, Muhammad Gifari.
Hello, Miss. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, my name is Muhammad Gifari Zakawali from IKIP Siliwangi. I just wrote several questions for you. Okay. In what ways does mastery learning address the diverse learning needs of students? And how can educational institutions adapt their curriculum and assessment methods to accommodate this personalized approach for more effective and equitable learning outcomes? Sorry, Miss, and pardon for my lack of my English.
So I think is the mastery learning equitable? Is that what the question is? Is it equitable? The mastery learning does address individual differences. So you can, and the reason mastery learning addresses individual differences is that the students have the time they need to reach mastery after the course, when they're studying at home, when they can come after class, they can come to office hours. So they take the time they need to understand the material. And when they meet with the professor can see where they may be having trouble and refer them back to certain areas of the textbook or certain, so individual differences are met by the instructor being able to really get to know the students individually. If 95% of your students are going to come and see you wanting to get half credit for work that they're correcting, you're going to figure out where the students are weak in their knowledge. So that's very helpful for student learning. So, but mastery just really requires more time and practice, and it's important to structure that time in the course itself, either by giving the students time outside of course, 2 weeks, to get the corrections in, or after a quiz, I would put students into groups to take the same quiz. Usually took about 15 minutes to do this quiz over again for 10 items. And so that was group work we did in class, and that was every class, and it saved me that much time going over the quiz the next week. I didn't have to do that because they caught each other's mistakes. Did I answer your question?
Okay, Miss, it's very clear. It's answering my question. And once again, I'm sorry for my bad English, and thank you
You're
for
good.
this.
No, you're fine. You're very good.
Thank you for your compliment, Miss.
Well, thank you for asking a question.
Professor,
Yes?
I think we have to give the opportunity to the
Next speaker.
participant to ask a question again. One question more. What do you
Okay.
think? Is it okay?
Sure, I'd love
One
to.
question more. Because it's very great and wonderful. There are a lot of participants who want to ask to you in this event.
My email address, I'm happy
Your
to.
email address?
Emails. My email address is on the front slide, the first slide. So would you please share my email address with everyone, and I will correspond with everyone who asks me a question. I will write.
Thank you
So-
very much.
You're welcome.
Yes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, probably we have to choose one more. Zahran.
Morning, Miss. Thank you for the opportunity. Okay, I would like to ask a question. So my question is, how does the concept of mastery learning impact traditional education models? And what strategies can educators employ to effectively implement mastery learning in order to enhance student understanding and long-term retention of material?
Okay. Well, the reason I titled my talk Second Chances is that I think that a student who takes a test on Monday, but yet learns the material on Wednesday should have Wednesday's grade. So I don't think that giving a test, and this is traditional learning, giving a test, and that's your grade in the class, and saying this is your grade, I don't think we stop there. I think we allow the students to show us they continue their learning, that they can master that material. And if they have mastered the material during the week, you give them more points for that. So that's still traditional in a sense that you're giving the tests. That's a traditional way to assess student learning, is with tests. You give a test, but you allow the student to revisit that. And I think you can do that within any course at all, to allow the students half credit for the points that they've missed on any course. And that doesn't, and grading, and grading is very fast. You get faster with it. It does take a little more time, but not that much more time. So give them second chances, do group work. And if you like my presentation, I'm willing to come back next year and talk about group work, because group work is really where, with language learning, is really where the mastery learning takes place. But groups have to be structured carefully. And because people who are just in a group talking, that's not group work. You've got to have a goal in group work, and the goal might be a perfect paper. We want to have bonus points for each one of us. So we're going to make certain that we convince this person that this particular answer was wrong, and this is the other answer that the group wants. But group work is very important, and so I'm happy to talk more about group work. But I think that I'm always willing to give students second chances, and I sometimes bend the rules, and I will remove deadlines so the students have more time, because I think that we have to be generous with students with their time, because students are busy people. So
Thank you, Miss.
So group work and second chances.
Changes and group work. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Such a great discussion and great presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, before we close this session, please allow me to hand over the certificate to the keynote speaker, Professor Judith Puncochar from Northern Michigan University in the United States of America.
Thank you very much, Terima kasih. I appreciate being
My
here.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
Next, we will have a photo session together. So, ladies and gentlemen, please prepare. I would like to count down and we are going to take a picture. 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much once again to the honorable keynote speaker, Professor Judith Puncochar, who have shared a great knowledge and new insight to all of us here in this event, International Language Education Conference 2023. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. Now, I would like to hand it back to the Master of Ceremony, Pak Trisnendri Syahrizal M. Hum. Good morning. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.